Hello everybody, welcome to another Versus Video Deck Tech. CVM here, joined once again.
BBD.
Old BBD, freshly back from Brussels.
Definitely
made it through customs.
I'm definitely back, but I'm probably not fresh. So it's been a long week and a half. So
yeah, but we're back battling some more Magic, and we have some sweet standard decks that were played at Pro Tour Dragons of Tarkir. So I am going to be
what was the name of that? What was that?
There be Dragons of Tarkir.
All right, yeah.
And so we're going to be battling with a sweet red-black Dragons deck. As those of you who might have been following Magic know that I recently won a tournament with a green-red Dragons deck, but I've been playing that type of deck quite a bit in these videos, so we figured we'd shake it up a little bit.
So instead of Thunderbreak Regent and Stormbreath Dragon, I lost my train of thought.
Well, I decided to switch Elvis Mystic for Thoughtseize.
Okay, there you go.
That's the big swap. So this deck is similar to the green-red Dragons deck. However, it is more disruption-oriented, and we have a lot more removal that can handle basically any creature. So rather than trying to get under our opponents with big creatures with mana acceleration, we still have the great efficient creatures with Thunderbreak Regent and Stormbreath Dragon, but we're using Thoughtseize and cards like Bile-Blight and Hero's Downfall to handle our opponent's early game, so that we're both getting to the mid game and the late game at the same time. I'm just going to be in a better position.
Yep.
We also get to take advantage of Draconic Roar in this deck, just like we do in the green-red deck. So I'm a huge fan of this card, and I think that Draconic Roar in particular has changed the dynamic with how these dragon-centric non-blue decks actually operate. You no longer have to have these early threats that are getting in damage to your opponent, so you can finish the game out with your larger creatures. Something like Goblin Rabblemaster is a good card that comes to mind. I think the Draconic Roar has made it so that you don't need that type of card anymore. You can use Draconic Roar to stay at parity in the early game, but you're also damaging your opponent, which is going to make it so that 1 or 2 hits from your dragon is going to finish the game, and it quickly closes the window on that time frame that your opponent has to draw an answer.
Yeah. I really like that this deck can just... this deck seems well positioned against a lot of strategies in that you have all these removal spells, but even against control decks, you also just have so much disruption.
Yeah.
Between like Thoughtseize and then Kolaghan's Command is just actually really good against both style of decks.
Yeah, Kolaghan's Command is, I don't want to say quickly, but it is definitely becoming one of my favorite cards in the new standard, and I really want to find the best Kolaghan's Command deck. I think that is something that could be very, very good as we move forward. Like the control decks are doing their own thing. The aggressive decks are doing their own thing. Mid-range decks are having this, arms race to see who can go bigger with Dragonlord of Tarka. And Kolaghan's Command is just like one of those cards that's very effective against any type of deck that you're going to play against, and we don't see very many of those cards.
Yep.
It's just, to me, it feels like just a very versatile Thoughtseize.
Yeah, I mean, against control decks, it's Thoughtseize, get back my dragon. Or you discard a card. It's not quite Thoughtseize.
Yeah.
It's like you discard a card, get back my dragon. But against aggressive decks, it's you discard a card, kill your guy, and then a lot of matchups it's like kill your guy, get even in mid-range matchups, probably kill your guy, get back my dragon. Or there's just so many different things you can do with it. It destroys Whip too, which is a problem for decks like this. Things like Whip of Erebos or whatever. So, yeah,
definitely sweet. Now the other Dragons Card Matters card that we have in the deck is Foul-Tongue Invocation.
Mm-hmm.
So this card is actually really sweet at helping buffer our life total against the aggressive decks. Sometimes it might only kill like a Dragon Fodder Goblin token out of mono red, but the 4 life that it's going to gain us is basically a fog for the next turn. So it definitely has a lot of value to it, but it also gives a deck like this an early game answer to Sylvan Caryatid, which is much more important to the green-red decks than most people realize.
Yeah, it is.
Being able to cast your dragons a turn early is the whole reason to play green in that deck instead of a different color. And having something like Foul-Tongue Invocation that can take care of it, a Caryatid early, is just really invaluable.
It's also good at giving you outs to cards like Silumgar the Drifting Death or Dragonlord Ojutai or all these other cards that could otherwise be very problematic for this deck. And another thing too is even though there's like Dragon Fodders and things, I like that this deck is built to play Foul Tongue but also Bile-Blight instead of Ultimate Price, because that gives you the ability to clean up the tokens and then Foul Tongue them.
Yeah, which is real sweet.
It is, yeah.
And then lastly, we have a Crooks of Fate. We saw that was put to a lot of good use this weekend by players like Shouta and his blue-black control deck. Here, we can still choose non-dragons and kill everything, but instead of keeping something like Dragonlord Silumgar, we're keeping Thunderbreak and Stormbreath Dragon, which is pretty sweet. I also think that Dragonlord Kolaghan is much better than we think it is.
It definitely is, yeah.
Especially in a deck like this, right now in Standard. So if you look at the majority of Standard deck lists, it's like anywhere from 5 to 5 to 7 4-ofs, and then a bunch of random 2s and 3s. And there's a lot of creatures seen play. So against a lot of decks, kill your guy, Thoughtseize your other guy, play Dragonlord Kolaghan. Like, they can't play half of the cards in their deck, otherwise they just take 10. So I think he has the potential to be much better than we're giving him credit for right now.
Yeah.
Or her credit, I believe. I believe
it
Miss
is.
Kolaghan is a lady.
It is a lady. And I also, it's also good against Elspeth, too, which is big, because Elspeth's just a really powerful card.
Yep.
I remember a game in testing where my opponent played a Dragonlord Kolaghan, and I was like, I'll just kill it with Elspeth, and I realized I actually have an Elspeth in my graveyard. I would just die if I cast this. I have to use my downfall on it, and now I'm behind. It's not what I wanted to do. So
Rhinos running packs.
They
do. Get that Kolaghan in play.
Yeah.
The mana base is all of the red-black duels we could potentially play. We have a couple havens to go along with our dragons. There is a Radiant Fountain, and to be honest, I kind of feel like this should just be another red-black tap land, like maybe a Nomad Stadium or something, because you really just want to be able to cast all of your spells at every point in the game, and going, Hero's Downfall into Thunderbreak Regent is a lot like the old Baublight into Brimaz moniker, so we do want to be able to do that.
I honestly actually kind of like the Fountain. I agree that it's hard to cast, but this deck does a lot of damage to itself, and it only has a few ways to gain life back. And I think that the damage this deck deals to itself and the amount of early damage it's going to take while it's setting up is the biggest drawback to the deck.
Fair.
I think having access to a nice effective piece of life gain is actually pretty sweet. Yeah,
I guess we have the Bloodfell Caves and the Feltung Invocation and the Radiant Fountain. Seems pretty sweet.
Yeah.
Let's go and take a look at the sideboard and see what kind of shifty transformations we can make in this mid-range deck. All right, we are back with the sideboard for the Red-Black Dragons deck. And as you can see here right off the top, 4 Goblin Rabblemaster.
Yeah.
So I really like the sideboard Goblin Rabblемasters right now.
I do too, yeah.
And I'm actually considering trying it out in the sideboard of the Red-Green Dragons deck. Cards like Ultimate Price and Hero's Downfall are really the only removal spells that are good against the dragons in your main deck and the Goblin Rabblемasters in your sideboard. Everything else is just really situational and is only going to handle some of your threats some of the time. And I really like, when you're on the play, being able to just sideboard into Goblin Rabblemasters and sometimes steal the game.
Yeah, I actually was a huge proponent of sideboarding Rabblemasters in a wide variety of strategies and testing, because people... Yeah, exactly what you said, but there's also even more than that. There's cards like Disdainful Stroke and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
If someone brings in Disdainful Stroke against your Dragon's deck, and then post-board you have Duress, Thoughtseize, Kolaghan's Command, Goblin Rabblemaster, they're going to get ranched, so...
Yeah. And we do have the Duress to go along with the Thoughtseize. It's just another supplemental way to attack our opponent's hand. Anger of the Gods, there are some decks that are pretty low to the ground, so we want to have a sweeper. In this particular deck, we don't really need to play something like Seismic Rupture to save some of our other creatures. We can just go full on with Anger of the Gods, which actually ends up being better because there are a lot of cards like Dent Protector and Death Misraptor that you can actually get rid of. We do have an Ugin because why not? Card is just very, very good, and there are some decks that just actually can't beat it. Anything with Whip of Erebos in it is going to be fairly weak to Ugin, so you definitely want to have access to it.
Yeah, there's a lot of decks that can kind of grind you out as the game goes on. For example, even the deck that I'm playing against today, I'm a little weak to the dragons that he has in this deck, but there's going to be decks that can try to grind you out but also can kill your dragons really well.
Mm-hmm.
And Ugin's just a really good answer to that. Plus you have 2 havens, so
yeah, the card's real nice.
You get to bring it back.
We do have a Virulent Plague, which combos well with our Goblin Rabblemaster, but is also good against opposing Goblin Rabblемasters. So, as we saw the deck that won the Pro Tour, there were Rabblемasters, Holding Outburst, Dragon Fodder, Just have all these tokens, and Virulent Plague does very well at keeping them under control.
There's another surprising deck where Virulent Plague's actually really good that you wouldn't think of, and that is actually Abzan Control, because that deck relies on Elspeth to win the game.
Yeah.
And Virulent Plague actually just makes their Elspeth do nothing.
It's pretty sweet. We do have another Kolaghan's Command and a Feltung Invocation just to bolster the numbers of those cards in the deck. And then another Crux of Fate as more ways to kill lots of non-dragon creatures, or dragon creatures, if you will. Sometimes you do have to just cast it to name dragons. I actually had a match this last weekend at States against Blue-Black Control where in subsequent turns they cast Crux of Fate on non-dragons to kill my non-dragons because I already had a dragon that was encased in ice. And I played another dragon and attacked, and then you'd have to cast another one and choose dragons. So just back-to-back 2 different modes. So yeah, card definitely is pretty flexible, and I really like it in a deck with a bunch of dragons.
Yeah, it just doesn't kill your... It's a Plague Wind in those decks.
A lot of times.
Not always, though. But your opponents have dragons, too, so...
Yeah. So that is the deck tech for the Red-Black Dragons deck that I will be playing. Make sure you check out BBD's deck tech for his Bant Ojutai deck that Craig Wesco piloted at the Pro Tour Dragons of Tarkir. And check out the video where we battle to see who comes out on top. Hopefully it's me.